Hello and welcome to Adventist Mission. Today we'll take you right into the middle of a tiny prison cell in the country of Moldova. Let me assure you, you won't want to stay there. Dan Weber is a video producer for Adventist Mission, and he travels the world collecting mission stories to show church members what's happening to their mission offerings. Today we'll talk to Dan about an Adventist congregation in that prison cell in Moldova. But before we talk to Dan, let's visit the prison. It's a touching story.
This is a common sight around the world, a group of Adventist believers singing and sharing their faith, celebrating the new lives that they have been given by a loving Savior. But this group is unlike any other in the church. These believers will never set foot outside the small room that they worship in. They are to spend the rest of their lives here. They have been forgiven by God, but society requires them to spend the rest of their lives behind bars. Balloons and children, smiling faces, images of life, something that we sometimes take for granted. The country of Moldova is a picturesque landscape nestled between the mountains of southern Ukraine and northern Romania. This former Soviet republic has gone under a drastic transformation over the past 20 years. Yet, despite all the changes, Moldova is still considered one of the poorest countries in Europe. People here work hard, most of them in agriculture or government, and they enjoy spending time with their families. You'll often see young children playing in the parks that are commonplace in the capital, Chisinau. The majority of the people here belong to the Russian Orthodox Church, but for many, religion is something that is traditional, not experienced. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has more than 11,000 members in Moldova, and a population ratio of one Adventist for every 390 people, one of the best in the entire Euro-Asia division. Despite this growth, there are still many challenges. Seventh-day Adventists in Moldova have found ways to not only spread the gospel, but to make a difference in their communities. One of these is Pavel Dierlanu, an Adventist pastor. Along with 3 churches that he pastors, Pavel works in 7 prisons in Moldova. He does everything from arranging and holding church services in small, cramped cells to arranging family days at prison and detention centers. Pavel is making a difference in the lives of people that society wants to forget. The smiles on the faces of women seeing their children for the first time in months shows how much they appreciate all that Pavel and his helpers are doing. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency also helps by providing volunteers, transportation for family members, and toiletry kits for the prisoners. Family members break down in tears as the emotions of months of separation come to the surface. Although it's a simple act of kindness, it's a perfect example of how the church can provide relief to those in need. Just as Christ did, help can be given without judging a person for their sins. It's another way we can represent Christ here on earth. There is one group that Pavel has taken a special interest in, a group that most people would avoid, but one that Pavel has taken as his own. Once inside the small cell that will serve as his chapel, Pavel leads a small group of prisoners in prayer and then reads from the Bible. Sabbath school turns into a lively discussion, as this is the first time that the group has been able to meet in nearly 6 months. Outside the window of the cell, a courtyard gives glimpses of how lonely a life these prisoners lead. All of them will spend the rest of their lives in desolation and despair. That is, unless they get the chance to talk to Valentin. He sits at the back of the group of prisoners as they start their church service. He has been labeled as a member of the lowest level of the prison society. Because he was willing to give a hand of Christian love to a fellow prisoner, Valentin has been labeled an outcast by his fellow prisoners. He's not allowed to touch or even talk to his fellow believers for fear that they will be ostracized as well. But the men in this cell all owe Valentin a debt of gratitude, for he was the one that brought each of them into the church. Valentin knows that God put him in this position for a reason.
And the Word of God says that we should be witnesses, His witnesses.
The prisoners are thankful for the new lives that they have been given by Christ. Despite all that they have done, these men now lead new lives.
And He is ready to accept them with all their sins, with all their deeds, what they did up to now, and to give them salvation and to forgive them.
The church service ends with Pavel's closing prayer, and the prisoners prepare to return to their cells. For them, the Sabbath service is over, but they wish to give one last message to their fellow Adventists around the world.
И прошу всех, кто будет смотреть вот эту вот съемку и слушать.
And I would like to ask everybody who will see these things
Молитесь о нашей вот этой малой группе,
to pray about our small group
которые только идут к Господу.
who are just on the beginning of their way to Christ.
И помните о нас везде и всегда упоминайте в молитвах нас.
And to remember about us in prayers.
Thank you for your support of mission around the world. To learn more about mission and the role that you can play in telling the world about Jesus, please visit AdventistMission.org.
Which country is the largest landlocked country in the world? Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Russia, Azerbaijan. The correct answer is Kazakhstan. The Republic of Kazakhstan is a country in Central Asia. It is the 9th largest country in the world, equivalent to the size of Western Europe. It shares borders with Russia, Uzbekistan, China, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkmenistan. Kazakhstan declared independence from the Soviet Union in 1991.
The sun sets along a river in western Russia. Fishermen cast their lines in the water, hoping to catch one more fish before the day ends. The locals take a stroll across a bridge that extends across the wide river. Here, people take the time to stop and enjoy the warm evening air. Next to the river, a group of people are gathered around a street performer. He tells stories and draws pictures on an easel. People laugh at his jokes and smile as he makes a connection with them. His name is Michael, and he is a Seventh-day Adventist. He and a team of young people from the local church come here several times a week to do art evangelism. Michael uses his artistic talents to tell a story to those who will stop and listen. A story of someone who loves them very much, someone who died for their sins and wants to make their lives whole. As Michael tells his stories, young people from the church pass out a newspaper called the Gazette. The paper tells readers of Christian values and how to better their lives. It may seem like a simple thing, but it has changed lives. It has brought new life to people who've been looking for something new, something to make their lives complete. In the Russian town of Krasnodar, the Seventh-day Adventist Church is an active part of this community. Here, lay members have taken Jesus' call to spread the gospel to heart. Through their outreach, the church is growing and spreading Jesus' love. They've found new and creative ways to reach people. Small groups meet in homes, and church members share their faith with their neighbors and friends. Entire families are coming into the church, and they, in turn, share the story of Jesus with those they come in contact with. Hundreds of lives have been changed, and many of them can trace it to one thing: the Gazette newspaper. One of these people is Liana. One day, she found a copy of the Gazette outside her door and decided to read it. It changed her life. She says that without the church, her life would be empty.
На беспросветную тьму, наверное. Вот
it would be like a darkness. It would be like my life would not have a purpose.
Through the simple act of sharing a printed piece of paper, the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Krasnodar is changing lives. They are directly touching people and giving them hope. A portion of your 13th Sabbath offerings this quarter will go to build new churches in the Krasnodar region. These buildings will serve as houses of light to reach even more people and bring them out of the darkness. Thank you for your support of Adventist Mission, and thank you for supporting the 13th Sabbath offering. Your prayers and financial support are making a difference in people's lives around the world. To learn more about Mission, please visit AdventistMission.org.
Sometimes when you see stories just like we have now from the Eurasia region of the World Church, you wonder, is there more to the story? There's probably many, many more pictures that didn't get in there, other aspects of the story. So to find out a bit more, we have Dan Weber, who is the producer of the Adventist Mission DVD. Dan, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gary.
What was it like to walk in behind bars to go into this prison?
It was a pretty amazing experience. It was at the end of my trip. It was the last day there, and I'd never experienced anything like it in my life, and I probably won't again.
Well, we hope not.
Yes.
So I'm guessing this was not sort of like a luxury prison.
No, it made Alcatraz look like a resort.
Yeah.
And it was really scary just to see the conditions that, you know, you see things on TV and in the movies, and it doesn't do justice to what these guys go through. Did
you have any trouble getting access into the prison?
Yeah, they'd asked for my passport number a month ahead of time to make arrangements, and they said everything was arranged. And I remember I talked to you and Rick about this story and said, you know, do we want to try to do this? And they're like, yeah, if we can get in, let's go for it and see what happens. And so we were told we would get in, and we show up at the prison on Sabbath morning around 9 o'clock in the morning, and they said, no, you're not getting in. And it took about 3.5 to 4 hours to get into the prison, and finally Pavel took out his phone and he called the warden of the prison, and the warden was on vacation, and he called the warden and said, you know, we've made arrangements with you to do this. The guards aren't going to let us in now. They're saying that we don't have permission. And he took the phone and he handed it to the head guard. Head guard walked into another room, and I think I know what swearing in Russian now sounds like. And there was a lot of yelling and screaming, and then the guy came out a couple minutes later and handed the phone back, and they closed the phone. And then he turned and walked away, and then about 10 minutes later he came out and he said, okay, you can go in, but the camera doesn't go in. And then I said, well, the camera doesn't go, I don't go.
No, you're not doing it for like a
right,
pleasure trip.
yeah. And so that took another 30 to 45 minutes to argue, and then finally they said, okay, you can go in. Then we had to go meet with the head of the kind of the sub-warden who oversaw the cell that we were going to go into. And had to meet with him, and he had to lay down the ground rules. I could only shoot inside that cell. I could not shoot anything outside, which was, I had visions of these great shots of men's hands through the bars as you're walking down and stuff and everything. Wasn't going to happen. No. I could shoot just inside that little room. And I kept saying to myself, how am I going to tell this story? So luckily, as you see some pictures of men through the courtyard on the opposite side. And so I was able to shoot through that little tiny window.
From within the cell?
From within the cell, and get some stuff. But I had no tripod. Everything was handheld. But I spent 3.5 hours inside there with these guys.
Did you have a feeling of claustrophobia being in there?
A little bit, yeah.
I'm assuming that you don't have a lot of experience inside.
No, it's my first time in a cell. Yeah. And hopefully my last.
So, I mean, you had the barrier of language, but what sort of a feel did you get of the experience of these guys? I mean, these are hardened criminals who have...
Yeah, very hard. Well, they're all in there for, most of them are in there for murder. And so, you know, and the first thing that goes through your mind is you get in there and there's a little bit of skepticism. Right. Because, you know, have these guys done this because maybe it makes their life easier or something? But to be honest, it makes their life harder. A lot harder. A lot of them have been, the prison has different classes, and a lot of them have been put down to lower classes because they converted to Christianity.
Because of the guards do that? Or?
No, the other prisoners do. The other prisoners set up their own rules in the prison. And Valentin, who we saw in the story, who's responsible for all those guys in that cell being converted, is at the bottom class. And the reason that he is because before he converted one prisoner who wasn't there. And that prisoner was at the bottom class in the prison. And then after he was baptized in a barrel out in the courtyard, Valentin went and gave him a hug. And because of that, he was automatically put at the same bottom class level because of that, because of his showing Christian love.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, did you get a feel for how this has changed the prisoners' lives?
Yeah,
Well,
there's...
let me hold it there.
Okay.
We'll find out more about this after we go to our break. And it's just amazing to think about what the experience must be like for these people who, unlike Dan, can't walk out again. But we'll find out more about this when we come back after the break.
Hi, I'm Dan Weber, one of the video producers at the Office of Adventist Mission at the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. 4 times a year, I make a trip with one of these cameras, and we go out around the world, and we see the life of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and we share these exciting mission stories with you here on this TV show. I want to share with you another way that you can take these mission stories and share them with your family and friends. It's called the Adventist Mission DVD. Every quarter, this DVD is sent free of charge to churches in North America. If your church isn't using it, ask your pastor or your Sabbath school superintendent if they will use it. The second way that you can get this DVD is by subscribing to it. It only costs $10 a year, and that pays for the shipping. Go to the website that you see on the screen or call the phone number that you see and subscribe, and every quarter this DVD will get sent to your house. I want to thank you for your prayers and your support of Adventist Mission through the years.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dan Weber, the producer for the Adventist Mission DVD. And Dan, we left it when you were in a prison there in Moldova. And I was asking...
Let's explain why I was in the prison. Don't just say I was in prison in
Sorry,
Moldova.
better get the context there. You were filming a mission story
Yes.
in the prison.
Yeah.
And I was asking you the changes in the lives of these prisoners who have come
Yeah.
to know Jesus. You were saying that you went in with a bit of skepticism, but...
Right. One guy I met, you always, bump into these stories you don't really expect to, but there's a guy named Zakir who's in this story. He's the one who's crying, and we did an interview with him. Actually, he came up to me after the church service was finished, and he said, I want to talk on camera. I want to talk to you. I want to tell you my story. And so through a translator he did, and he's from Turkmenistan. He was Muslim, so he was converted first to Christianity and then to become an Adventist in prison by Valentin. And he started saying how his family abandoned him because his family was Muslim. And so he wrote to the president of the church in Turkmenistan and said, can you please go talk to my family because they've abandoned me. And he hadn't seen his family for 16 years. And the president of the church there went and visited his family and explained the situation, explained who Adventists were. And because of that, several of his family members have now been converted and are Adventists. They've joined the church, and they're making plans to go to Moldova to visit him. So imagine there's a country where the church, it's one of the most difficult countries in the world for the church to work in because of the restrictions that are put on our pastors. But because someone was converted in another country, in another unique situation, then directly because of that, people in Turkmenistan were converted. And so, it's just an incredible story.
And broke down the prejudice that they had with their son.
Yeah.
So Dan, you walked out of that prison, glad that you were walking out, but with a changed view.
It was the end of a long trip, and I was tired, and I wanted to get home to my family. But the energy that I felt after that experience, just, I don't think I could sleep the next night, just because all the thoughts that were running through my mind. I was saying, how am I going to write this story? What's the best approach to tell this story effectively? Because, you don't want to minimize what's happened there. You want to make sure that you're communicating clearly with the strength of what's happening in the faith of those people. It's just amazing.
Now, tell me about the experience you had just this past week on a plane where you were talking with the lady next to you.
Yeah, I was flying back from Canada, a little tiny jet, just cramped in. It's early in the morning and I want to sleep. And the woman next to me is just kind of talkative, and so she starts asking what I do, which always, of course, brings up conversations. And I start saying, well, I produce documentaries for the Seventh-day Adventist Church and fly around and visit projects and mission stories. And immediately, oh, tell me some stories. So I started telling her stories. And I shared the behind bars story, and she started crying. You know, and she's sitting there going, I didn't want to sit on a plane and cry, you know. She's an emotional person. This is such a beautiful story. You know, someone who's not even an Adventist, but still has an appreciation for that story.
Touched her heart.
It did touch her heart, yeah, yeah.
Now, Dan, the Adventist Mission DVD, how do viewers see this?
A bunch of ways. First of all, every church in North America and other divisions are sent a copy, and it is distributed throughout the world. And then online, it's available on our website, adventistmission.org. And if you have a computer and have iTunes, you can go to iTunes and do a search for Adventist Mission, and there you'll find our video podcast.
Wonderful. Dan, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Let's go to another story from the Euro-Asia region of the world field, and it's called A Silent Witness. I hope you enjoyed today's program, and thank you so much for your continuing prayers and financial support for the mission of this church. I hope your church is using the Adventist Mission DVD. If you're in North America or Australia and New Zealand, your pastor should already be receiving a free copy of this DVD. And increasingly it's going to every region of the world field. Your mission offerings are making a difference. Thanks for putting that dollar or shilling or euro or rupiah into the offering plate. Thanks to you, lives are being changed and hearts are being touched. If you'd like more information about Adventist Mission around the world, please visit us online at www.adventistmission.org, or here in North America you can call us at 1-800-648-5824. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you can join us next time right here on the Hope Channel.